won't have to deal with Jimmy Butler. He's serving a 7-game suspension for conduct detrimental to the team. The Clippers are playing Brooklyn tonight at the Intuit Dome in Inglewood. The Clippers have moved up to 5th place in the Western Conference. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
We gon' be alright.
KBLA Talk 1580 is amplifying Black voices and spotlighting our untold stories. I'm Dominique DePrima. Join me Thursday from 6 to 9 a.m. as we broadcast live from the Altadena, Pasadena area. Due to the National Guard section, we will not be at Perry's Joint. Our new location is the Pasadena Church East Campus at 425 Sierra Madre Villa. We'll be covering the individuals and families impacted by the Altadena Eaton fire. Hear from community leaders and those who have suffered losses that must not be forgotten. So join us Thursday at the Pasadena Church East Campus at 425 Sierra Madre Villa. Together we can help them rebuild and recover. Together we are LA Strong, LA United. With your friends at KBLA Talk 1580.
What is the world coming to? Seems like everyone is running from the truth. We need to stand up and fight, walk into the light. We're the people, we can do it if we try. I know we can do it. Somebody ask me, why do we have to go through it? It's just a test of our faith. What we're living day to day. We don't know where, we don't know when, but it's coming back again. Oh, yes it is. It's late in the evening. Oh, Lord, it's time for you to return. Oh, Lord, I know.
Welcome back to Truth Time with Dr. Cornel West and Nina Turner. Absolutely, it is time to make a change. Doc, I am still here at Simmons College of Kentucky, led by the one and only Dr. Kevin Cosby. And I will be here over the next, it'll be 3 days by the time that I leave. So that is a beautiful, beautiful thing. We know that today is officially Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday. We will recognize it as his birthday as a holiday, as a country on Monday, but today is the actual day that he was born in 1929. And you know, Doctor, there are going to be a lot of politicians waxing poetic about the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., treating him like he's some book in a chapter that you pick up and open and then close at will, not understanding that there has to be a moral reckoning. There will be a lot of politicians who quote the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who support bombs in Gaza. Doc, what's on your mind today? Doctor's in the house.
Well, it's always a blessing to see and talk with you, but this ceasefire is on my mind. We called for a ceasefire the first day. That's 465 days ago. That's 15 months ago. And now almost 50,000 precious Palestinians have been killed. 20,000 children. Now, each life is precious. We know that the Israeli lives, yes, indeed, they're precious as well. But we're talking about a situation in which not one U.S. politician, other than Sister Rashid and a few others, could raise their voices and talk about the criminality of these kinds of massacres, of genocide. Not one mainstream corporate media voice could talk about the dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of journalists who were murdered. Not one university in America could say a mumbling word about 13 universities abolished, destroyed, across the board. Hospitals, major hospitals, abolished, destroyed. Churches, mosques, destroyed. It's a sign of America's deep spiritual decay and moral decadence and cowardliness among not just the leaders and elites, but we didn't have enough even among the ordinary people. We had some wonderful movements, but they were repressed. But you would think there'd be a massive, massive expression. That's what Martin is concerned about, I think, on his birthday. He's thinking, look, if we're living in a society that is so afraid and scared and fearful of raising their voices to condemn a genocide in which 20,000 children are killed, we either got one, still deep problems of racism, because we know that if those lives were European, if those lives were Israeli, if those lives were white people, if those lives were Jewish people, we'd have a qualitatively different response to the genocide. So they tell us Palestinian lives don't count. Palestinian lives really don't matter. That's one. Then the second thing, even beyond that, is then you end up with folk who are telling us that those who raised our voices, something's wrong with us. We must be anti-Semitic. We must be supporting criminals. We must be supporting terrorists. And we're trying to keep alive Martin's voice, his legacy, and his witness. No, we believe that Palestinians have the same status as Israelis. Palestinian babies are just as precious as Israeli babies or any other baby. And yes, we're going to be true to that legacy of Martin. And of course, for us, it goes all the way back to Jesus of Nazareth. So you say to yourself, this is the same ceasefire plan, same exact one that was submitted 7 months ago. But Netanyahu wouldn't allow it. So you got 10,000 more innocent folk killed. And now, why does he push forward to, here come gangster Trump. Ooh, gangsters dealing with gangsters. You got Trump and Netanyahu. He said, Trump's moving into the White House now. Looks like I've got to be able to follow through on this and kill as many folk in Gaza as we can before the ceasefire is signed. See, that's sick. And that's not unique among Jewish people. It's not unique among any particular people. It's a human wretchedness that is manifest in this case with Israelis. It was manifest in other cases around the world, other genocides we know that cut across cultures, cut across empires, cut across civilization. But here we are in the United States facilitating this. Biden, Harris, Blinken, Austin, Thomas Greenfield. We can go right down the line, facilitating genocide. That's going to be a fundamental part of their legacy. They're not going to be able to escape that. And those of us who are raising our voices again, don't do it with a spirit of hatred. No, it's a spirit of love for any people undergoing genocide. So thank God for the ceasefire. Thank God it's coming to a close. The rubble that Gaza is now, the memory of those gone, the thousands and thousands of folk who are maimed, and then probably more than that is what happens after stage 2 and 3. Will Palestinians ever be treated with the kind of dignity and decency they deserve, just like anybody else, just like Israelis, just like Americans, just like Guatemalans, just like Ethiopians? So that you think about just the scope and depth of the hypocrisy and the scope and depth of the barbarity. And we ought to be ashamed that we witnessed this genocide, could not bring it to an end. I know I'm sorry to go on
No,
this.
you all right. The doctor's in the house, everybody. The doctor is in the house. You are listening to Truth Time with Dr. Cornel West and Nina Turner on KBLA Talk 1580. When we come forward, we will finish this conversation.
Speaking truth to power and to the powerless. This is Truth Time with Dr. Cornel West and Nina Turner.
KBLA Talk 1580 stands with you in tough times, connecting you with resources and what you need to know. Evacuation shelters are located in the Pasadena Civic Center, the Dream Center in LA, the Westwood Recreation Center, and many more. You can call 311 for details. Santa Anita Park in Arcadia is a pop-up mutual aid hub where you can pick up anything from clothing to food and hygiene supplies. If you're in Los Angeles County and in need of food, call Omni Ministries at 310-631-1557. Donations can be made to Zelle, Omni Ministries, Inc. at yahoo.com. Parking Lot I outside of Rose Bowl Stadium is a pop-up mutual aid hub where you can pick up everything from clothing to food to hygiene supplies for free. To volunteer or donate to help victims of the fire, contact the LA Emergency Network at enla.org. The Cochran Firm and Ivy McNeil, Wyatt, Purcell and Diggs, Jasmine Canick, and others have launched a GoFundMe specifically targeting Altadena. Visit LA Fires. The impacted Black community urgently needs help on GoFundMe, and donate to help Black evacuees fighting for survival. Airbnb is offering free temporary housing to people displaced by the fires. Call 211 to sign up. The LA Chamber of Commerce is stepping up to help you sort out insurance claims and other paperwork. Reach them at 213-580-7500. South LA Cafe has free groceries, clothing, and water available at 1700 Browning Boulevard in LA. Track their giveaways or volunteer through their Instagram at South LA Cafe. U-Haul is donating short-term storage free of charge for 30 days to evacuees. Shelter for small or large animals can be accessed by calling 211. A Black-led coalition of community organizations is offering support and resources in the Altadena area at the Flint Ridge Center at 236 West Mountain Street in Pasadena. For comprehensive lists of resources for housing, food, shelter, and more, visit Mutual Aid LA Network on Instagram. Praying for LA and standing with you. KBLA Talk 1580.
Our daughter Jessie loves playing detective.
A clue.
But since we discovered she has sensitive skin, we've been playing detective too.
We thought the problem was our puppy.
But it was actually our old detergent.
Aha.
So we switched to Tide Free and Gentle. Tide Free and Gentle provides an excellent Tide clean, and it doesn't leave behind irritating residues like dyes or perfumes, so it's gentle on your skin.
Case closed.
If it's got to be clean, it's got to be Tide Free and Gentle.
1 in 3 children born today will get diabetes. This sad prediction by the Centers for Disease Control will come true if millions of Americans don't improve their lifestyles, especially by changing what they eat, how much they eat, and how active they are every day. Every 23 seconds, another American gets diabetes. Stop diabetes before it starts. To learn more, contact the American Diabetes Association or download our free diabetes education programs at learningaboutdiabetes.org.
To thine own self be true. More of Truth Time with Dr. Cornel West and Nina Turner coming your way right now on KBLA Talk 1580.
Doc, it's so good to have your comments and your thoughts at the top of our show, what you're thinking about, what you're wrestling with in this moment. And yes, phase one, because this is only phase one of a multi-phase plan in the Middle East when it comes to the hostages. And it is important for people to understand that we are not quite sure what could happen in phase 2 or phase 3. And Doc, you really outlined linking that to the legacy of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who stood up against war in Vietnam. And for those who have joined us today, you will not want to miss our show tomorrow. Dr. West and I, a deep dive into part of the life and legacy of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. It would definitely take generations to unpack it all, but we do the best that we can. We will do the best that we can to do that on tomorrow. But today is the day that the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was born in 1929, and had he still been alive today, he would be 96 years old. So the doctors in the house linking this to the barbarity, as he laid out, of what is happening in this country and how power is used for some folks and against others. And so that made me kind of reflect on, I mean, Dr. King is one of the most quotable people on the planet. It's kind of hard not to quote the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. But it's particularly on his birthday today, I thought about, based on what you just said, about how certain people decide whose lives are important and whose lives are not. Dr. King talked about the uses of power, and this is what he said. He said, power without love is reckless and abusive, and love without power is sentimental and anemic. Power at its best is love implementing the demands of justice, and justice at its best is power correcting everything that stands against love. That's what you said, Doc, in a nutshell.
Yeah, Brother Martin, he both said it and he lived it. And you and I and Tavis and others, and they come in all colors and all genders and sexual orientation, religious, non-religious traditions, try to build on Martin's legacy. But his legacy today is so weak and it's feeble because the dominant tendencies of our day are greed and contempt and ambition and spectacle rather than love and service to others and sacrifice for something bigger than our egos. That's what spiritual decadence really is. That's what moral decay really is. You see, when people find it difficult to cultivate the capacity to love, fight for justice, and sacrifice for something much bigger than them. So that what happens is that in so many instances, especially our spokespersons and leaders, they act as if they're saluting Martin when they're really slapping him in the face in the grave because they're spineless. They have no backbone. They're being tested. Will you raise one word about genocidal attacks on children? Nothing. Silence. This is true for black politicians, white politicians, brown politicians, across the board. This is true for too many leaders, too many pastors, too many rabbis, too many mullahs. What are they talking about when they're talking about Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday and his legacy, other than just a symbolic gesture to be included in a celebration, rather than to really bear witness in a substantive way in a demonstration of what King's legacy was all about. And it's much easier, of course, for any of us to talk rather than to act. But the beautiful thing is I'm talking to Sister Nina, and I know her history, I know her witness, I know her truth telling, and it's a beautiful thing, and it's wonderful. Brother Tavis is kind enough to give us his platform on Truth Time, because let's just be very honest. You're not going to hear this kind of truth talking in too many places in the American empire, not in this society, and you're not going to hear it too much in Black America. No, they got too many ties to their big donors, their big benefactors. They trying to accommodate themselves to APEC and a whole host of other institutions that's got a noose around their neck, and they can't speak the truth when it comes to the suffering of Palestinian brothers and sisters. That's a sad situation when you're on that kind of plantation.
But by the grace of God, that could be any of us. And that is why we must care. There's a self-interest here in caring when people, whether it's right here in this country, plenty of people suffering, or whether it's our sisters and brothers and family and friends and even frenemies, this level of suffering must be answered to. And there will indeed be a moral reckoning. I am, and as I know you are, Dr. West, happy for those families who will see their family members who have been held hostage for months. We celebrate with them. And we, the United States of America, must help to find a path forward, and the state of Israel must be willing to do that so that the type of freedom will reign supreme, that it just won't be a moment. And it really troubles me in a way, well, no, not in a way, it absolutely troubles me that this is a phase. This is because we had a ceasefire before where a few hostages were released. All of them should have been released at that time, but we had one, and I know folks have very short memories, but that happened already. And it was only at times of ceasefire that hostages are actually released. Folks need to wrap their minds around that. You can't release hostages with bombs overhead. There must be a ceasefire for hostages to be released. But they are talking about this as if it is temporary, Dr. West.
Yeah.
And that troubles me. This should be a permanent ceasefire with a plan to bring life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness to the Palestinian people as well as the Israeli people. In equations, my math teacher taught me what you do to one side, you got to do to the other. And so when it comes to the humanity for Palestinians, that is not necessarily happening. And with President Donald J. Trump about to be inaugurated for the second time, and that is going to happen on Monday on the actual MLK Day holiday, he already made it clear that if the hostages were not released before inauguration, all hell, quoting him, was going to break loose. And I'm not sure what is going to happen in phase 2 and also in phase 3, because we want all of humanity over there to have a path forward to true peace and true reconciliation. So these phases really trouble me unless the phases are going to bring about permanency and creating security and peace for both peoples.
Absolutely. I mean, one is that you're going to have to lift the occupation of Palestinians. There's simply no way you can have Israeli security predicated on the domination and occupation of Palestinians. And that's a major move, but it is a necessary move. Then the question becomes, and how then do you have self-determination on behalf of both peoples? You either have two states or you have one secular state with two peoples, almost like Belgium or Switzerland. We don't know, but that's a long way down the road. But that's the vision you're going to have, because the sad thing is that as long as we look at the world through the lens in which an Israeli life has more value than a Palestinian life, there'll never be justice there. That's the racism you have to hit head on. And then you got to deal with America's own imperial interests. You see, we got our commercial interests, our geopolitical interests, and you've got, of course, the decrepit leadership in Israel itself. I think Netanyahu will probably end up going to jail, because once they have a ceasefire, he's corrupt as they come, and you would hope there'd be some other Israeli politician that could step forward. But Israel is just as spiritually decayed and morally decadent as the United States in terms of its quality of leadership. Netanyahu, Donald Trump, you don't get a lower common denominator than that in terms of integrity, honesty, decency, courage, concern about the least of these. So we between a rock and a hard place. Black folk, we've been here for 400 years, between a rock and a hard place. And we only make progress when we have folk who tell the truth and seek justice, who are willing to live and die. That's Martin King. That's Martin. And he's not all by himself. There's a whole wave of freedom fighters behind Martin. And there's a whole wave after Martin. It's just getting weaker and weaker because our spines are getting weaker and weaker.
We have indeed been here before. We've been here before, and we know what to do moving forward. It is a sad commentary, though. I was having a conversation with somebody that I care about dearly, and that is very troubling to him as well, that we are really going backwards as a people, where we have always been the moral compass and consciousness of this nation. And in some circles, especially elected circles, and not all, and you talked about Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib, who definitely is carrying this. They just ousted her partner who was helping her to carry this as well, and that's Congresswoman Cori Bush, who stood strong, was punished for staying strong by the powers that be. And the Black Caucus, the Congressional Black Caucus, didn't lift a fingernail to support or to help her in ways they showed themselves to have wanted her out as well. And then you got Congressman Bowman from New York, same thing. All those pressures and powers.
And Sister Nina Turner, Senator Nina Turner, was punished and pushed out by the same forces same institutional forces. And, people have a right to express their freedom of speech, but when they come in with big monies and lies in order to try to suppress and punish folk who are telling the truth about the Palestinian condition, then we'll never be able to have justice there if that's the situation. But we know truth crushed the earth will rise again.
That's it, Doc.
Truth forever on the scaffold, wrong forever on the throne, yet that scaffold sways the future. And behind the dim unknown standeth God within the shadow, keeping watch above God's own. That's Martin King.
That is indeed. I'm looking. I mean, we will continue our conversation about the life and legacy of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. even until tomorrow, because his life and what it meant. He lived for a justice not unto himself, but for all people, centering the Black struggle. Though he was very clear about that, because you got to have a focal point. You got to have a fulcrum, and it is that Black struggle that is the center point for liberation for all people. And I appreciate you so much, Doc, for reminding folks that the vengeance, if you will, started with my race in 2021 and then in 2022, and you were right there by my side, as well as God sent a whole bunch of people to be there with me, shouting out Jewish voices for peace, our Palestinian sisters and brothers, the Black community. I mean, there were a lot of freedom fighters by my side, but it is an example of how absolute power can corrupt absolutely when groups get to decide who leads and who does not. When we come forward, the doctor is in the house. We are centering what is happening in the Middle East with the life and legacy of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. You are listening to Truth Time with Dr. Cornel West and Nina Turner on KBLA Talk 1580.
More of Truth Time with Dr. Cornel West and Nina Turner when we come forward.
I'm Amber Payton with 4 things you should know with BIN News. Dangerous winds up to 70 miles per hour are complicating efforts to fight Southern California wildfires. At least 25 people have died and thousands of homes have been destroyed. Former Minneapolis officer J. Alexander King, convicted in George Floyd's murder, was released from an Ohio federal prison today. Sentenced in 2022 to 3.5 years, he remains on supervised release until March. Thomas Lane, another former officer, was released last summer. Black New York City Mayor Eric Adams has announced a $650 million plan to help the city's homeless and mentally ill with care, housing, and 900 new shelter beds to reduce hospitalizations and street homelessness. And MSNBC President Rashida Jones is stepping down after 4 years. The first Black executive to lead a major U.S. news network, Jones called her tenure the most rewarding chapter of her career. Her departure aligns with Comcast's plan to spin off its cable networks. I'm Amber Payton on the Black Information Network, your home for Black News First.
Your local Staples has hot deals and super low prices throughout the store on everything for your business. And right now at Staples, save up to $175 off your print order. Exclusions apply. Visit staples.com/print for details. Ends 2/1. Plus, save even more with the Easy Rewards program at Staples.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. would have been 96 today. If he was still with us, he would likely be delighted with the significant progress made by African Americans in sports. When Dr. King was assassinated in 1968, there were no Black managers in Major League Baseball. Today, there are 2 right here in L.A. Ron Washington with the Angels and Dave Roberts with the Dodgers. There were no Black quarterbacks in the NFL in 1968. When the 2024 season kicked off in September, 14 of the NFL's 32 teams started a Black quarterback. There were no Black head coaches in the NFL in 1968. Since 1989, the NFL has had 20. And there were no Black head coaches in Division I college football in 1968. On Monday night in Atlanta, where Dr. King built his civil rights legacy, Notre Dame's Marcus Freeman has a chance to be the first Black head coach to win a Division I football national championship. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Somebody's been praying for me.
Thanks to the generous support of the KBLA Talk 1580 delegation, we were able to donate 545 pounds of coats and blankets to the LA Mission this winter season.
Hallelujah, hallelujah.
The LA Mission expressed its deep gratitude for our gift all over social media, but we wish to thank them and all the other service providers who look out daily for the less fortunate in our community, finding our happy by being helpful.
Hallelujah.
We're KBLA Talk 1580, where we do more than just talk.
Somebody's been praying for me.
Okay, so last time I had insurance, I got hit with huge bills every time I saw the doctor.
You gotta get a plan with low copays and no deductibles. That's what those big bills are. I got a plan through Covered California. Now it doesn't cost so much to go see a doctor.
Seriously?
Yeah, and they have a bunch of options like that, so you can find one that works for you and your cash flow.
I can swing that.
We all have questions. Covered California has answers and can find a health plan that's right for you. Covered California, this way to health insurance.
This is for all the folks who appreciate follow-through. Here's a quick recap of the KBLA Talk 1580 2024 Climate Justice Campaign. More than 6.4 million Southern Californians viewed our climate justice billboards and bus shelters. Another 1.5 million people listened to and or downloaded our weekly conversations with African American climate experts. Our KBLA Climate Justice web portal had 2.8 million unique visitors. Thousands more attended our 7 climate justice community events. More than 9.3 million riders saw our climate care messaging on metro buses and trains. And 39 million Americans accessed our C-SPAN Climate Justice Symposium. All told, our 2024 Climate Justice Campaign exceeded 471 million total impressions. KBLA Talk 1580 thanks all of our 2024 Climate Justice partners: LADWP, Metro, Caltrans, Sierra Club, California Community Foundation, the California Endowment, LA City Council member Curran D. Price Jr., the California Wellness Foundation, MWD, AQMD, and the Port of Los Angeles. Caring about the climate, caring about the community, changing the conversation. We're KBLA Talk 1580. This is where love and truth meet.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
You're listening to Truth Time with Dr. Cornel West and Nina Turner.
We're so glad you are here with us, whether you're watching us on YouTube or listening to us in your cars. The doctor is in the house along with yours truly, Nina Turner, and we are reflecting on what is happening in terms of the phases for the hostage release. So happy that they are being released, thrilled for their families and everybody that was sending love and really on the front lines to see that this would happen. And we're weaving that into the fact that today, yes, today, is the day that the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was born, January 15th, 1929. And had he lived, we all know he was assassinated, but had he lived, he would be 96 years old. And Dr. King's life is not something that we just open up a chapter in a book that we just open up now and then, make it look pretty, close it, open it up now and then. It is something to be lived. And so, Doc, you really have opened this thing up all the way, and how you are linking this to what is happening in the Middle East. We always also can link this to what is happening where there is any type of suffering, whether it is here or somewhere else. So Dr. King was very clear about what would be necessary to move us forward as a people and also a nation. As we kind of unpack this thing in a way that I didn't necessarily see us doing today, but as we unpack this, the moral decay, so whether it's the economy, because you and I are talking about moral decay, it is a type of moral decay when people don't have a living wage. Absolutely. Dr. King believed in a guaranteed income. It is a type of moral decay when people are unhoused. It is a type of moral decay when we see the immense suffering that is happening in LA County right now. We can substitute LA County for other places in this country where the infrastructure and the leadership over generations, not not just the current leadership right now, but over periods of time have neglected the needs of the people. Just because we are in a period of moral decay among some, particularly in the political space, does that mean we always have to be in a state of moral decay? I mean, I'm just trying to, I wrestle with that all the time.
No, well, we always have to be poised for a spiritual awakening and a moral renaissance and a political reckoning. And that only comes through facing the truth. If you're in denial about yourself, about the nation, about the empire, there'll never be any reckoning. There'll never be any awakening. There'll never be any renaissance. You look at LA right now, as a result of wind, fire, and a system in which it's difficult for common good and public interest to be accented so that people can be protected. Now, you look at Gaza. Gaza looks worse than LA right now, but that's a result of what? Bombs. The result of what? Drones. Result of what? Bullets. Result of what? Soldiers. And you say to yourself, okay, you got two instances of human suffering. It's the same thing about Sudan, same thing about Haiti. There's so many different places we can go to, right? And Martin says, especially as a Christian, I'm concerned about each and every one of those individuals and persons, and I want to keep track of these oppressive institutions and structures that want to crush them like they're cockroaches. And I'm willing to raise my voice. I'm willing to straighten my back. I'm willing to organize. I'm willing to go to jail. And I'm willing to take a bullet. And he took a bullet for who? Janet, those on strike, the sanitation workers. But it was also a bullet for Black people. It was also a bullet for Africans. It was also a bullet for oppressed people around the world. It was a bullet for humanity in the end. It really was, because there'll be no humanity if there's nothing but just Gazas and LA fires. The species is over. Fossil fuel company tied to profit undermine the conditions for any ecological health. Grotesque wealth inequality, billionaires, billions and billions and billions of dollars, and homeless people in the millions. Please, what makes people think that humanity in the end will survive? Brother Martin used to say the question is what? Non-existence or non-violence. It is whether you're going to treat people right or whether your whole systems will go over. When most of these TV shows report the ceasefire today, most of the people not even going to know a genocide taking place, because the media has covered it up. They're in denial. They hide it. They conceal it. People don't even know that the baby's being killed every day. 54 Palestinians killed yesterday. You got 20 some in LA, each life precious, no matter what color. But when you have a system that is organized around denial, oh, it doesn't look good, but we got to be that silver lining.
We do, and that systemic failing is what I want folks who are joining us to understand. Systems are created by people. And so because systems are created by people, we can create new systems. So just because something is true today does not mean that it has to be true tomorrow. None of this stuff is happening by osmosis. It is happening by design. So we can design something new. And so to prick the consciousness of people, that was one of the roles that the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and many of his contemporaries who joined him, including Mrs. Coretta Scott King, who really was the one to open his eyes all together. And I can't wait till we go deeper into this tomorrow. I can't wait until we do it. I want folks to know that there is promise in the problem. And Dr., as we analyze this stuff and we just kind of lay it out, it is communities coming together. It is making better decisions for the type of people that we put into elected office, and stop falling so in love with these folks that they can't be critiqued. And I just want to draw people to this. You know, just even the funeral of President Jimmy Carter that just recently happened. By the way, the Republicans are saying they're not going to keep the flags at half mast, but I digress. That's some selfish stuff, Doc. I will put that in the parking lot. We can come back to it, but that is a sign of it's ridiculous that they wouldn't do that. President Jimmy Carter, even though it's the inauguration of President Trump, those flags should remain in reverence to that man at half-mast. But I digress. Let me come back to this point. Folks have got to understand that what happens over there happens over here, that none of us can escape this thing. And so when a certain type of brutality is happening, we have to respond to it. So now back to President Carter's funeral, Doc. I don't know if you saw the photographs. You probably did. And we should have asked the team to put them up. But President Obama and President Donald J. Trump were huddled up, smiling in good conversation. The reason why I bring that up, not that I'm offended by it. I am not offended by it because I can hear my grandmother in my head act like you got some sense. So they had a funeral, right? They're not supposed to be scowling at each other. But this is the point. People in the upper echelons of power got other folks fighting each other, falling out with their relatives, not talking to nobody no more over an election. And then at the funeral of President Jimmy Carter, you got Presidents Obama and Trump huddled up. Not just a hi, how you doing? But I mean huddled up, Doc.
Well, I mean, I was surprised that Sister Jill and Brother Joe Biden couldn't say hello to Sister Kamala Harris. They just sit down and then turn their back. I said, Lord, you going to say hello to Brother Doug? Lord have mercy. Of course, Brother Bush wasn't going to say a word to Brother Trump. He just hit Obama on the stomach, something like that, as I recall. And he showed me the picture, But no, it just shows that, our ruling elite, they're just so corrupt. It's just a little club they have of celebrity status for a while. They can't even treat each other kindly in public, which is to say hello. I mean, I don't mind Trump and Brother Barack Obama saying hello. They don't need to sit there and be telling jokes and carrying on. But I mean, you can just say hello. That's how we were raised, right? You just say hello to people. Just be kind and keep moving. There's nothing wrong with that, but you can just see that they've got this little connection as celebrities and presidents, and all of them tied to war crimes. When in terms of drones dropped on innocent people around the world, so we won't even get into that, right? But it's just since they're so far removed from what we understand a deep humanity to be. I was glad Sister Michelle didn't go. I'm glad she's not going to the inauguration. If she's feeling that way, that's beautiful. Be yourself, my dear sister. Absolutely.
Be yourself, First Lady Michelle Obama. Doc said, be yourself. When we come forward, we are jumping today. Cannot wait to come forward with you to continue our conversation. You are listening to Truth Time with Dr. Cornel West and Nina Turner on KBLA Talk 1580.
It's Truth Time with Dr. Cornel West and Nina Turner on KBLA Talk 1580.
Oh no, stomach issues again?
Stomach issues? Who are you? Your pancreas. I could be the real reason for your diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose oily stools.
I thought it was my stomach.
People often do, but any of these symptoms could mean having a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and speak with your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
Our daughter Jessie loves playing detective.
A clue.
But since we discovered she has sensitive skin, we've been playing detective too.
We thought the problem was our puppy.
But it was actually our old detergent.
Aha.
So we switched to Tide Free and Gentle. Tide Free and Gentle provides an excellent Tide clean, and it doesn't leave behind irritating residues like dyes or perfumes, so it's gentle on your skin.
Case closed.
If it's got to be clean, it's got to be Tide Free and Gentle.
My mom has decided to learn to paint, and she's good.
My dad's now into creative cuisine, and I've already put on 6 pounds.
Learning new things comes with age.
My mom, she started forgetting my name and what we're talking about.
Forgetting well-known things doesn't. Memory loss may be a sign of Alzheimer's disease. Early detection gives you and your loved one time to plan for the future. Learn the warning signs of Alzheimer's at 10signs.org. Brought to you by the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The Autopsy Initiative provides a second autopsy free of charge for victims' families who have lost their loved ones due to a police-related death. The services offered through the initiative include the completion of a second autopsy, disclosure of preliminary findings, and a final autopsy report. A police-related death is when an individual is harmed by police officers using deadly force, which results in an individual's death. Police-related death includes in-custody deaths, including those that arise during contact with law enforcement officers during arrest, pursuit, booking, transport, or incarceration. The Autopsy Initiative has a team of board-certified pathologists on call. An autopsy request may be completed by anyone with a close relationship with the victim, which may include the victim's spouse, partner, relative, close friend, or lawyer. To request a free second autopsy for a victim of police violence, please visit knowyourrightscamp.com. That's knowyourrightscamp.com. Then click on Autopsy, then click on Request. At KBLA, we believe in justice for victims of police violence. We say their names, and we don't black down. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Truth crushed to earth shall rise again. You're listening to Truth Time with Dr. Cornel West and Nina Turner, only on KBLA Talk 1580.
And that is a beautiful thing that truth crushed down to the earth shall rise again. Truth Time with Dr. Cornel West and Nina Turner. Thank you all so much for joining us. And if you're just joining us at this very moment, make sure you download the KBLA Talk 1580 app. And if you've missed any of our previous shows, wherever you get your podcast, you can go back and listen to our show. So do that for us. And there are some folks, Doc, as you know, are watching us live on YouTube. So we want to welcome them and both thank them. We were unpacking, Dr. West, the link between the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and the release of the hostages to a whole host of other conundrums that we find in the atmosphere of human existence, how that links to power, and what the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., his legacy, his gospel, if you will, juxtapositioning his gospel onto what is happening in the world today. And I think I can summarize that by saying we come up wanting, we come up lacking collectively, though. Not as individuals, because there's some individuals doing the daggone thing, doing the work for humanity right now as we speak, both in this country and in the world. But collectively, as a human species, we come up wanting.
No, that's true. That's true. And all of us fall short, though. We're all cracked vessels in different ways. Even Martin himself, as a human being, he was no deity, he was no God. He was a cracked vessel, but he allowed himself to be a vessel of the great virtues of love and courage and hope and faith. And I think, when we talk about hostages, you still got the Palestinian prisoners who are being released. So you have an exchange. You got these innocent folk who have been either incarcerated or have been snatched. And therefore you end up wanting to make sure they all are able to gain access to a condition that's different than what they find themselves at the moment. But in the end, you're going to have structural institutional justice. And on a spiritual level, as Reinhold Niebuhr reminds us, any justice that's only justice soon degenerates into something less than justice. The Martin Luther King Jr. talked about love. Love is deeper than justice. It embraces justice. Mercy is deeper than justice. It embraces justice. And that's where the personal comes in. That's where the attempt to empower persons as individuals and as community. That's where deep friendship comes out to. Think of your relation to my beloved wife, Anahita, your dear sister. See, that's love. That's deeper than justice. You know what I mean? Of course, my relation to her is deeper than justice, right? But it embraces justice because justice flows out of a deep commitment to a certain kind of care and concern. But we're going to fall short. We're going to fall on our faces. T.S. Eliot says, "Art is in the trying. The rest is not our business."
No, we all fall down, Doc. But in order to fall down, that means you had to be up. And we need to be up working on something profound and something that is bigger than ourselves. And although some of the things that Dr. West and I are putting forward for everybody that has joined us today may seem insurmountable, it is not. Because if everyday people put a little extra on their ordinary, extraordinary things can and will happen. When we come forward, we will continue this fascinating conversation, wrapping the life and legacy, a part of it, to Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. on his birthday, to what is happening in the Middle East and even in our own country. You are listening to Truth Time with Dr. Cornel West and Nina Turner on KBLA Talk 1580.
Here with cultural incompetence, KBLA Talk 1580.
That was another way. I would smoke once an hour. That didn't work either. All that would happen at some point of the day, I would end up doubling up. Other ways that I tried to quit was I stopped buying cigarettes totally. But if I took 3 puffs off of 15 friends, those didn't count because they weren't my cigarettes and they weren't full cigarettes. I went through a lot.
Every attempt is part of your story to quit for good. Visit Kick It California today at kickitca.org.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Ray Richardson, your sports connection here at KBLA Talk 1580. Join me and my co-host Neil Scarborough every Saturday night at 7 for Out of Bounds, the show that brings some flavor to the world of sports for 60 minutes. We take you beyond the scores and press conferences. We give you our point of view, the way black folks see what's going down. You can join the conversation and give us your analysis at 1-800-920-1580. Out of Bounds every Saturday night at 7 on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
You like your style, though.
If you're living with dry age-related macular degeneration or dry AMD, you may be at risk for developing geographic atrophy or GA. GA can be unpredictable and progress rapidly, leading to irreversible vision loss. Now there's something you can do to
slow it down and get it going slower.
Izervay is proven to slow GA progression.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Izervay or avacincaptad pagel is a prescription eye injection used to treat GA. Don't take it if you have an infection or active swelling in or around your eye. Izervay can cause eye infection, retinal detachment, or increased risk of wet AMD. Izervay may temporarily increase eye pressure. Your vision may be impaired after an eye injection or exam. Don't delay. Ask your doctor about Izervay today.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Visit Izervay.com. That's IZERVAY.com.
This is where love and truth meet.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
You're listening to Truth Time with Dr. Cornel West and Nina Turner.
Yes, you are. So, Doc, in our remaining minutes here, this was so good. We got to come back and do this tomorrow and really stretch out on the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and bring Mrs. Coretta Scott King into the fold. Oftentimes, in thinking about her and being reminded of Dr. Bernice King, she makes it clear, don't leave my mama out of this. My daddy couldn't have did all those great things without my mama. That's what Dr. Bernice King, and I love her for that.
She's telling the truth, and we tell the truth on Truth Time, and we say with Martin, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. Stand for truth, stand for justice, stand for a love supreme with some joy in your soul and with style too.
Well, we got to do everything with style. We definitely need that today. I mean, given all that's happening in this moment, even the confirmation hearings, which we will get to at some point because they'll still be going on well beyond the inauguration of President Donald J. Trump. But it's jumping. I mean, a lot of things are happening, the types of people who will be confirmed, because make no mistake about it, these folks will be confirmed because the Republicans control the Senate, and that's just how it is. President's nominees are usually, for the most part, confirmed, Doc, and I really do want us to unpack that for our viewers so they understand the system and the process and how it works before people get all clutching pearls and get all swole up in the chest. This is how it works, and it doesn't matter if it's President Donald J. Trump or President Joseph R. Biden, President Obama, etc. This is how it goes.
That's very true. But you keep your head up. Be of great courage. Don't be discouraged.
We gotta do that. My Nina notes for today, and hopefully I can get a response to you in the last 3 minutes that we have. We were talking about freedom. We were talking about justice, as we often do. And I was thinking about Asa Philip Randolph, one of the greatest labor leaders of the 20th century. And Doc, I'm gonna roll this on for you. Justice is never given, it is exacted, and the struggle must be continuous, for freedom is never a final fact. I got to repeat that one more time. Freedom is never a final fact, but a continuing, evolving process to a higher and higher levels of human, social, economic, political, and religious relationship. I want to put an exclamation point and a boldness on relationship.
That's Asa. Asa Philip Randolph out of Jacksonville, Florida. Reminds me of my dear brother Larry Morris, another giant out of Jacksonville, Florida. No, you hit the nail on the head.
Laying it down.
He gave his life. He gave his life to those words, though, didn't he?
And his legacy, as did the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Well, that is our time. The doctor's in the house. Yours truly is in the house. And you have been listening to Truth Time on KBLA 1580. Do not forget, tomorrow, Dr. West and I will continue unpacking the life and the legacy of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Until next time.
With 4 things you should know with BIN News. Dangerous winds up to 70 miles per hour are complicating efforts to fight Southern California wildfires. At least 25 people have died and thousands of homes have been destroyed. Former Minneapolis